I'm a 30-year-old woman, married to Daniel, a 32-year-old man. We've been together for 10 years and have moved all over the country because of Daniel's military career. Daniel left the military this year, and we bought a house in July. We are located in Arizona. Most of Daniel's family lives in Texas, but Daniel's sister Rebecca, who is 30 years old, just moved to California with her husband Josh, who is 33 years old. Since Rebecca and Josh are super close to us now, and we all get along really well, we invited them over for the holidays with their newborn. So far, we know they are coming over for Thanksgiving this year, possibly Christmas as well. Some information. Daniel, my husband, has a sister named Rebecca, who I've already mentioned, and a brother named Nathan. Nathan is married to Rachel, and they have 2 boys. Daniel's parents are also in the picture, Cindy and Robert. I don't know their ages, I'm sorry. I do not get along with Rachel or Nathan, my husband's brother and sister-in-law. Long story short, I went to one of my nephew's birthday parties, and it was outside in Rachel and Nathan's front yard. A neighbor's dog came up to all of the kids, wagging its tail and wanting to play. A very friendly dog. Everyone was petting this dog, myself included. Rachel walked out of the house, saw the dog playing with her kids, hit it multiple times in the face, and yelled for it to get out of her yard. I am an animal lover, and I lost my composure. I told my husband I needed to leave before I did something I would regret. Rachel said I caused a scene. Nathan didn't seem to think his wife hitting a dog for no reason was a problem. Rachel went to every single family member of my husband's and claimed I called her an evil name, which I didn't. I have heard from other people that Rachel has been cruel to other dogs. So yeah, ever since that day, I have refused to interact with Rachel, which is why I don't like those two. So we invited Rebecca and Josh over. Rebecca tells Cindy, my husband's mom, that they are coming over to our house for Thanksgiving. So Cindy says that she and Robert, my husband's dad, are coming over too, without asking me or my husband if that's okay. Fine, my husband misses his parents, we'll make it work. But then Rebecca informs me today that Rachel and Nathan have invited themselves over to our house as well, along with their 2 boys. First off, we just moved into this house, and we aren't ready to host so many people. We can deal with my husband's parents, but we can't handle 4 other people right now. Apparently, Rachel and Nathan have told our 2 nephews that seeing Uncle Daniel is their Christmas present this year, and they are super excited. I'm furious. I know my husband wants to see his family. He misses his nephews and brother, and I think Rachel took advantage of that and invited herself over, knowing I don't want her here. She has told her 2 children that Uncle Daniel wants to see them, and this is their Christmas present. And she has also claimed that we have to let them stay at our house because they cannot afford a hotel room. Not one person has asked if it was okay to stay here. No one has called my husband or me about this. If they all show up on Thanksgiving Day, I'm worried about the safety of my 2 dogs. If Rachel starts anything with me, I will defend myself. If she hits one of my dogs, I will do things to her that I cannot say on Reddit. My husband should be able to see his family during the holidays, and I don't want to be the one to tell him no, but I don't want Rachel here. Everyone but her would be fine. I don't know what to do. This was going to be a fun, small get-together that has turned into a nightmare. Please, I need advice on what to do. Now for an update, please don't upvote this post too much. I don't want to cause even more issues by someone in my husband's family seeing this post. A lot of you are saying my husband needs to take care of this. He will. He wants me to decide what I want to do, and we will go from there. I came up with a few solutions on my own, but I wanted to see if Reddit had any better ideas. I thought about putting a deadbolt lock on our master bedroom door and keeping our dogs in there away from the guests. I would go in there periodically to keep them company while my husband spends time with his family. A few people suggested I get a hotel room. I could, but if we were going down that route, I think I would just get a hotel room for Nathan and Rachel and tell them they have to stay there. I personally don't want to do that. We're going to be spending a lot of money on food for everyone, but it is technically a solution. To make things clear, my husband doesn't like Rachel either. I don't think anyone does. They all kind of just put up with her because she's married to Nathan. My husband told a joke one time around Rachel that wasn't even directed at her, and she pinched him so hard that his arm bruised. From my understanding, Nathan threatened to divorce Rachel over her being too harsh to their kids. I don't know what she did, and she's been going to therapy on and off to improve. Something about childhood abuse, I don't know. I kind of don't care. I was abused as a child and I don't hit dogs or kids, but whatever. Basically, Daniel's family is telling me Rachel is trying to be better and I think she's medicated now. I just don't know if I fully believe that. So right now the options are: 1. Tell them no. Only Rebecca and Josh were invited. Hurt my mother-in-law and father-in-law's feelings. Hurt my nephew's feelings. 2. Rebecca, Josh, and Daniel's parents are invited. Nathan, Rachel, and the boys are not. That one will most likely cause conflict. I also feel like that option is a little cruel since the boys won't understand. 3. Call my husband's parents and ask if Rachel is actually going to therapy and taking her medication. Have my husband call Nathan and ask the same questions. If everyone promises she's trying to be better, I might be open to it, only because of my nephews. Any relationship she and I could have had was burned years ago. Maybe there is another option I haven't thought of yet. I don't know. As long as this post doesn't get too popular, I'll keep you guys updated. I really just made this post because I want a mostly peaceful solution. I had to go no contact with my immediate family, and I don't want my husband to have to experience something similar with his brother. That may not be possible anymore. Only time will tell. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This is a husband problem. He should be handling his family. The overstepping is insane. That said, I think it's weird that you'd plan to host a holiday and not invite the whole family. I'd tell my husband to inform the party of 4 that you don't have space to host, so they'll need to find an Airbnb. And I'd board the dogs or keep them crated for their own safety. I too would do things we shall not post publicly if someone hit one of my dogs. Comment 2. Your husband needs to get on the family group chat or email. There seems to be some confusion about the plans for Thanksgiving. We invited Rebecca and Josh for a small gathering. We're now hearing that the rest of you took that as an open invitation. It was not. We aren't able to host everyone, and certainly aren't able to put everyone up at our place. Or something like that. Say it in the open. Now for the update. Here's the update, guys. It's been 5 days since the original post, and Thanksgiving chaos is almost here. I'm still a little shocked that I'm actually going through with this, but I did. I decided to host everyone, including Rachel and Nathan, at my house. I know, what was I thinking? I guess I was just trying to be optimistic and create a nice family atmosphere. But at the same time, I can't lie. Part of me was scared of the fallout if I didn't let them come. Daniel once again reassured me that Rachel would behave herself during Thanksgiving. I don't know how he was so confident, but he said that she wouldn't want to ruin the holiday with their parents around. So I went along with it. The past few days have been a blur of cleaning and preparing the house for all the guests. I wanted everything to be perfect, so I spent way too much time making sure every corner was spotless. I even set up a special area for my dogs to keep them safe and out of reach from the kids. I was really worried about the kids and their love for the dogs. Not so much love, but more like their curiosity, if you know what I mean. I wanted my dogs to be comfortable and not stressed out by all the noise and chaos. The day before Thanksgiving, Rebecca sent me a message asking if I could contribute something to the potluck. She suggested I make my famous mashed potatoes, which I was actually really happy about. I agreed, hoping that it would help create a positive atmosphere and show Rachel that I was on board with the family fun. Thanksgiving morning arrived and the whole house smelled like turkey. It was so comforting. I was in the kitchen finishing up my potatoes when Rachel and Nathan arrived first, along with their 2 kids. I took a deep breath and greeted them at the door. Rachel immediately commented on how cute my house was, but I could tell by her tone that it was more of a backhanded compliment. I just smiled and said thanks. Cindy and Robert, Daniel's parents, showed up shortly after, bringing a ton of desserts. The kids ran into the living room, creating chaos with all the toys and noise. I was trying to keep my sanity when I noticed that Rachel's kids were running towards the dog area. I quickly intervened and reminded the kids to stay away from the dogs. Rachel rolled her eyes and said that the dogs needed to toughen up. Oh, really? Toughen up? I just smiled and said that they were just a little skittish. This was already shaping up to be a blast. Things got even more interesting when I caught Rachel giving her kids snacks from the table without asking. I was so annoyed. Daniel saw the look on my face and helped diffuse the situation by saying that Rachel was just trying to be nice. The atmosphere felt really strained after that. Dinner was served and everyone gathered around the table. I tried to keep the conversation light, but Rachel kept bringing up old family stories. I knew where this was going. Then she mentioned the incident with the dog from the family party, and there was an awkward silence. I kept my composure and quickly changed the subject to the turkey. After dinner, Rachel's kids started playing rough in the living room and almost knocked over one of the tables. I had to step in and redirect them, but Rachel was like, "Oh, they're just having fun." Yeah, fun at my expense. Later that night, while I was cleaning up, I overheard Rachel talking to someone about her recent social media posts. She was bragging about her lifestyle and how she was the fun aunt to everyone. It made me so sick. The evening progressed, and my dogs were getting really anxious from all the noise. I decided to put them in a separate room to avoid any incidents. I just wanted to make it through the holiday without any drama, you know? After everyone left, I found a chewed-up toy that belonged to one of my dogs in the living room. Guess who I thought was responsible? Yup, Rachel's kids had been in the dog area unsupervised, and I was really not happy about it. I texted Daniel about it, and he promised to address it with Rachel. He said that he was really disappointed in her behavior, and I could tell he was genuinely upset. The next day, I came up with a plan for a family gathering in a month to discuss family values. I wanted to address the issues directly and hold everyone accountable, especially Rachel. She needed to know that her behavior was not okay and that it wouldn't be tolerated. I sent out the invitations, making sure that Rachel received one. I wanted to make it clear that this was for everyone, and they all needed to be there. The day of the gathering arrived, and I was a little nervous, but also excited to finally address everything. Rachel walked in with that smug attitude of hers, as usual. I stood up, thanked everyone for coming, and stated that we needed to talk about boundaries. I revealed the toy incident from Thanksgiving, and everyone was caught off guard. Rachel tried to defend her behavior, but Daniel backed me up, saying that this wasn't just about me. It was about the entire family respecting each other and our homes. The gathering ended with Rachel storming out, and honestly, I didn't feel bad about it. The family is now more aware of the need for respect, and Rachel's behavior has been put on notice. It's a step in the right direction, and I think it's what we all needed. Edit. The aftermath of the family gathering has been interesting. Rachel hasn't reached out to us yet, which is surprising. I expected at least a call or text from her. Daniel says that Rachel knows she messed up and is embarrassed. I've received a lot of support from the family regarding the gathering. They all agree that it was necessary. We're planning a barbecue soon, and Rachel's family has been invited. I'm considering giving her a second chance, but I'm cautious. Am I the idiot for leaving my husband after catching him lying about smoking Zaza again? My husband has irritable bowel syndrome and relies on smoking Zaza to alleviate his pain. However, he also says that it makes him less anxious in social situations. For context, he smokes every day after work hours and on the weekends. I myself smoke occasionally when I need to distress, which I find myself doing once a month or once every other month. A few months ago, we both agreed that we would start trying for a baby. We wanted to have a healthy attempt at conceiving and avoid any potential risks within our control. We had agreed that we would completely abstain from drugs and alcohol, and I would halt my birth control. A week into being free of birth control, I caught my husband smoking Zaza from his vape. Despite literally catching him red-handed and seeing him smoke and stash the vape, upon confrontation, he proceeded to lie and gaslight me into thinking I saw something different. Mind you, smoke was still literally lingering in the air. It was at least a minute of him lying until he finally broke and told the truth that he had snuck upstairs to smoke Zaza. Unfortunately, this isn't the first time I caught him red-handed. A year ago, it was the same situation regarding Zaza, him sneaking away, vaping, and gaslighting me until he admitted to the truth. It was hard to work through that trust issue, but eventually we made it to a better place. At this point, if we're counting, this is the second lie he has told. We've been on below-average terms over the past week, and I was relieved to find out he was going on a trip with his friends this past weekend. Before he left, he promised he wouldn't smoke while he was away. He just returned today, and after debriefing about his weekend, I asked him if he smoked Zaza. With confidence, he said no. I tried to ask the question a couple of other different ways to really give him the opportunity to come clean. It's no surprise at this point that I have trust issues and had a gut feeling that he was lying. And I was right. After his third or so time telling me he hadn't smoked Zaza, I told him that if I buy a drug test kit on Amazon, will it pass? This test specifically flags if Zaza is detected in the past 5 days. He eventually broke and said he had smoked once at the very beginning of the trip. My world shattered. Again, I'm no longer filled with rage, but more so with intense disappointment, sadness, and uncontrollable tears. He proceeds to apologize. There was some defending and even more promises made, but at this point, all I could process was the lie. We've already been to couples therapy regularly for 4 years, and this issue has been brought up. But I fear his potential addiction is beyond a couples issue, and more about his internal struggle that I frankly have no more patience to deal with. I don't know what to do now. I have no trust in him, and I am starting to pool with regret about staying in this marriage. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. So your husband relies on marijuana for his irritable bowel syndrome, but you decided for him that he's gonna quit. And now you're shocked he's sneaking it. If he quits, that needs to be up to him, and only after finding an alternative that helps with his own health problems. Or does that not matter at all to you? If you wanted marijuana-free sperm for your perfect fetus creation, you should have married someone else. Comment 2. Why did you want him to quit a year ago, which resulted in him lying about it? I get the feeling that marijuana is a bigger problem in your relationship than you're letting on, and you're using wanting to have a baby as an excuse. 4 years of couples therapy? This relationship seems to be more work than it's worth. Now for the update. 3 days later, I went to a family dinner at my parents' place. The atmosphere was super tense. After everything that happened with my husband, I really wasn't in the mood to be all happy. My mom served lasagna, which is usually a family favorite, but I had a hard time even picking up my fork. Just thinking about everything was enough to make me lose my appetite. So there we were, sitting around the dining room table, and out of nowhere, my brother casually asked what our plans were for starting a family. I hesitated for a sec because what could I even say? Like, hey, my husband's a lying addict, so yeah, not sure about that baby in the near future. But instead, I just mentioned the ongoing challenges with my husband. I could feel all eyes on me, especially my mom's, and it was awkward. Then my brother's wife, who was sitting there with her pregnant belly like she was the queen of the world, decided to chime in with unsolicited advice about parenting. Like, thanks for that. Real helpful. This led my mom to share stories of her own struggles during pregnancy. And honestly, I was just trying to keep my head above water here. The conversation took a turn and spiraled into this big discussion about the importance of trust in relationships. It felt like a punch to the gut, and I couldn't even look up. My husband texted me while we were at the dinner table, asking how it was going. I quickly replied, mentioning the conversation, and I could just feel the tension rising even more. Like, sorry for ruining family dinner with my relationship problems. After dinner, my dad pulled me aside to talk privately. He expressed concern about my husband's behavior and how it would affect my future. I brushed off his concerns and insisted we were working on things. I mean, we had been in therapy for 4 years. But really, how much progress can you make when one person is still hiding stuff? The family dinner ended with my mom suggesting a family outing the following weekend. I agreed, wanting to keep up appearances for the family. Later that night, my husband came home late, reeking of smoke. He claimed he had been out with friends and didn't smoke, but I felt like that was a lie. I confronted him, and he got all defensive and raised his voice. We argued late into the night, and there was no resolution in sight. Just a lot of shouting and him trying to make every excuse possible. The next day, I found a receipt for a hotel stay in my husband's jacket. I confronted him about it, and he said it was for a work trip. Right, because that makes total sense. Then I discovered messages from a woman on his phone discussing meeting up. Like, are you kidding me? He admitted to meeting this woman, but insisted it was just to talk. Yeah, sure, buddy. We left therapy that day, and we had a heated argument about trust in the car. He panicked and told me he needed my support to deal with his struggles. As the week went on, I attended the family outing. My brother noticed my mood and asked if everything was okay, but I just deflected the question. At the outing, my husband showed up late, trying to act like everything was normal. The tension was obvious among the family members as we exchanged glances. I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to leave early because feeling like a prisoner in my own life was not my idea of a good time. After returning home, I found my husband asleep on the couch. Classic. The next day, I packed a bag and moved into a friend's apartment. I texted my husband about the decision, making it clear it was necessary. Edit. After I moved out, my husband attempted to reach me multiple times, but I avoided his calls. I focused on myself, seeking therapy individually and discussing my situation with friends. I also shared the news with my parents, who were supportive of my decision. I'm currently prioritizing my mental health and exploring my options. Am I the idiot for telling my drunk father to get his act together at my sister's birthday party? I don't even know where to start because this just happened, but I guess I'll just give some background. My dad, in his early 50s, is a great man and father. I can't stress enough how much I love him. He is funny and generous and one of my favorite people. My sense of humor and taste in music are entirely thanks to him. But he's becoming someone I don't recognize anymore. My dad's always been a bit of a drinker, and for my whole life, he only ever drank on Saturdays and holidays. I never thought he was that bad, but in the last few years, I've really noticed how much my mother, in her late 40s, shielded my younger sister, who is 20, and me from how much he was really drinking and how obnoxious he would become once drunk. Tonight, the four of us went to a concert we've all been looking forward to for a long time. Prior to leaving, my father was being kind of difficult, and I realized he was already tipsy when we got into a small argument over him taking something I was using and holding it just out of reach while pretending he was going to drop it. But since we had a designated driver, my mom, I was also having a drink, so I decided to just let it go for the sake of the concert. When we got there, he got so much worse. He kept slipping away when we were distracted, and it felt like he had a fresh beer every time he reappeared. He got sloppy drunk, like having a difficult time staying upright, nearly knocking people down as he danced and stumbled around, barely coherent drunk. My mom, sister, and I were so upset and embarrassed because he was attracting a lot of attention. At one point, he bumped hard into my sister. Whether on purpose or not, we're not sure. None of us are talking to him right now, but I wouldn't put it past him, which knocked her drink over, soaking her clothes and making her cry. Honestly, I think she was more crying because of the state he was in, and I don't blame her. I did the same thing shortly after. He did so much more than this, but honestly, I'm just so exhausted and confused, I can't even get it all down. We all wanted to leave after an hour of begging him to please put the beer down, please sit down, or at least stay by us. But it took forever for us to actually decide to leave for two reasons. One, we were afraid he would get angry and belligerent because he was just so intoxicated. And two, because in the 1 second we took our eyes off him to make a game plan, he disappeared for real. It took us an hour to find him, and by then we were all just completely done and disgusted with his behavior. The drive home was awkward and mostly quiet, and no one talked to him once we got back. He pretty much went straight to bed. So now that leaves me here, the last one awake and completely heartbroken, and for the first time in my life, ashamed of my father. I'm somewhere between angry that he ruined something we were looking forward to for so long, and lost because I just want my dad the way I remember him when I was a little girl. I'm worried about his health. If anyone has any advice on next steps, or even just how to handle the next 24 hours when I can't even look at him, it would be really helpful. How do I bring this up to him? How do I tell him that his drinking is starting to scare me when he just won't listen? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. If he won't listen when you try to talk to him and immediately becomes defensive, it's already a problem. It's an addiction. I also grew up with a functioning alcoholic father and didn't know it until I was in my late teens. My dad always traveled for work. He would be away from home for a week or two at a time and not drink at all during that period. But then when he came home, he would get drunk. I mostly remember just having to be quiet a lot when my dad was home because he was tired from traveling or jet-lagged, when in reality he was drunk or hungover, and my mom didn't want us to set him off. He's gotten pretty bad a few times, but not until I was older. I think in his mind he thought it was okay because I was an adult at that point. It's still hard to see your parent like that, no matter your age or knowing the cause. Comment 2. I am so sorry. This happened in my family when I was a little girl. I remember running away and not going to school because I thought everyone would know. Awful, embarrassing, and heartbreaking. There was a pitcher with the Red Sox, Dennis Eckersley. Apparently, he was quite a drinker back in the day. One day, his children had enough. They videotaped him during one of his episodes. They let him know when he sobered up and showed him the video. He found help and stopped. Look it up, it is quite the story. I would suggest you do the same. Show him the tape, then let him know you love him, but this is too much for all of you. Hopefully, you are able to touch the real him inside. I hope he is able to heal from whatever is bothering him. I also hope you and your family are able to heal as well. Good luck. Now, for the update, 2 weeks after the concert, it was time for my sister Kate's birthday. Since my parents live about a 2-hour drive away, I left early in the morning to spend some time with my brother Jake and his wife Rachel before the party. The vibe was just off. I mean, it felt like we were all walking on eggshells. We didn't bring up our dad or the concert, but we all knew it was there, hanging over us like a dark cloud. We arrived at my parents' house, and my mom greeted us at the door with a big smile. It was fake as hell, but we appreciated the effort. She was like, "Oh, I'm so glad you guys could make it," even though we all knew we had to be there for Kate. She then took us inside, where we found Kate bouncing off the walls. She was so excited for her party, and we were all trying to keep that energy alive despite the elephant in the room. My dad showed up late, of course. He walked in smelling like a brewery and claimed he had just come from work. Yeah, right. He brought this huge cake and some gifts, trying so hard to be the fun dad. During the gift opening, he stumbled while handing Kate a present and almost knocked over the table. My mom shot him a look that could unalive, but he just laughed it off and said he was just excited. At that moment, we all exchanged worried glances. Rachel looked like she was about to cry, and Jake's jaw was clenched so tight, I thought he was going to break a tooth. Dinner was just as awkward. My dad poured himself a big glass of wine and kept refilling it while everyone else had just one. He started making jokes that didn't land, and the room fell silent a few times. At one point, he asked Kate if she wanted to try some wine, and my mom quickly jumped in, saying she was too young. My dad insisted he was just joking, but it felt so off. The tension in the room was thicker than the frosting on the cake. After dinner, we moved to the living room for cake and ice cream. My dad got up to grab another drink, and I decided to follow him to see how much he was really drinking. I found him in the kitchen, struggling to open a bottle of whiskey. When he saw me, he put the bottle behind his back and laughed, saying he was just making a toast. I was like, "Dad, we should focus on Kate's birthday," and he rolled his eyes, saying it was just a little fun. Yeah, right. Back in the living room, he started telling embarrassing stories about me and Jake from our childhood. My mom tried to steer the conversation, but he just kept interrupting her. Finally, Jake had enough and asked him to let someone else talk. My dad snapped back, saying he was just trying to lighten the mood. At that point, the mood had soured so much that you could taste it. My mom shot him another warning glance, and I could see she was about to lose it. After cake, my dad suggested we play a family game. Everyone hesitated, but we agreed. During the game, he got so competitive and started shouting at the TV when someone made a mistake. It was like he was a different person. After the game, my mom had had enough and pulled him aside for a private conversation. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but it looked serious. When they returned, my dad was quiet, and my mom looked like she was about to explode. The night ended with everyone saying their goodbyes. Jake was uneasy and made some excuse about needing to get to work early the next morning. On the way home, I overheard my mom on the phone, sounding really worried and mentioning something about my dad's drinking. That hit me hard. I didn't want to believe he was that far gone. A few days later, I found an empty whiskey bottle in the recycling bin when I was taking out the trash. Yeah, it was a low point. That weekend, Jake and Rachel invited us over for dinner, and my dad came along. At dinner, he was unusually quiet. The tension was just palpable. Rachel mentioned something about a family trip, and he abruptly changed the subject. He avoided any plans like the plague, and it made me wonder what was going on. After dinner, I saw him step outside to make a call, and I caught a glimpse of him looking so stressed. He was just a shell of himself. Later, I learned from Jake that my dad had been skipping work and was facing some issues at his job. It was like everything in his life was falling apart, and there was nothing we could do to stop it. I feel like we're all just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I don't know how much more we can take. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.